Elias Ward walked along the dusty surface of the frontier planet Taran 5, the twin suns burning low in the sky. The settlement of Kaleport was small, barely a cluster of metal buildings and domed habitats, but it had its own rhythm. He liked the quiet. The occasional hum of transport ships and the faint chatter from the trading hub were enough for him. For someone used to bustling spaceports, this solitude was comforting. He paused at the edge of the landing pad, watching a freighter drift into position, its engines glowing faint blue against the red sand. He adjusted the strap of his toolkit bag, knowing the inspection would take hours. The authority that governed this sector was strict. Inspections were not just about safety. They were a reminder that control extended even to remote outposts like this one. As he began his work, Elias noticed a sleek black starship descending from orbit. Its markings were unfamiliar, sharp lines and symbols that indicated authority. The craft landed with precision, and a ramp extended slowly to the ground. From it emerged a figure that drew immediate attention. Commander Salith moved with a fluid grace, her tall frame carrying authority that demanded acknowledgement without a word. Her skin shimmered faintly in the sunlight, a soft pearlescent glow that marked her as part of the Saren, a species known for discipline, intelligence, and a memory as precise as any computer. She surveyed the port, her violet eyes scanning every corner. When she stopped and looked at Elias, something in her gaze tightened, though she did not understand why. There was a flicker of recognition, buried deep under layers of memory. Elias, too, felt a twinge of curiosity. He had no way of knowing who this alien was, yet her presence seemed oddly familiar. "Ward," she said, her voice firm but not harsh. "I am Commander Salith. You are assigned here as the chief technician?" Elias nodded, keeping his hands visible as he approached her. "Yes, Commander. The systems are in order. Everything should meet your standards." She studied him for a moment longer than necessary. "I see." Her eyes lingered on his face. There was something about the way he held himself, calm, confident, not intimidated by her rank. It stirred a memory she had long buried. Salith turned and walked slowly toward the central hub, and Elias followed at a respectful distance. The Saren commander's attention was sharp, noting every detail of the port, every piece of equipment, and every motion of the humans and aliens working there. Yet she kept glancing at Elias as though searching for something she could not yet name. Inside the main building, she finally spoke again. "Ward, you are not from this sector. How long have you been here?" "2 standard years," he replied. "I prefer quiet places. Less interference, more efficiency." Her lips twitched into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Efficiency is commendable, but your presence here has been noted by the Council. Humans are rare in this region. You should know that attention can be dangerous." Elias raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He had always known humans were few and often underestimated. That did not bother him. Humans were resilient, adaptable, and intelligent. Those qualities were easy to overlook, but rarely could they be ignored entirely. As the inspection continued, Salith noticed how Elias moved. He did not rush, did not panic under her watchful eyes. He handled delicate machinery with a steady hand, solved problems calmly, and corrected errors without drawing attention to himself. In a world where many species relied on strict rules and hierarchy, human adaptability was an unexpected form of strength. It was then that the memory hit her, sharp and unyielding. A younger version of herself, no older than 10 cycles, trapped under burning debris, flames licking at the edges of her habitat. And then, a human had appeared, pulling her free without hesitation, without fear. His eyes had been calm, full of a strange courage she had never forgotten. She remembered thinking at the time that humans were fragile and weak, yet this one had defied every expectation. Salith's fingers tightened around the edge of her inspection tablet. Could it really be him? Could this quiet technician, who worked methodically in the heat of frontier life, be the same human who saved her life all those years ago? She tried to push the thought aside. Memories could deceive. But as she observed him, small details, the way he straightened his shoulders, the focus in his eyes, the calm in his movements, echoed the memory perfectly. She felt a strange pull in her chest, a recognition that went beyond logic or reason. Elias paused, sensing her gaze. "Is something wrong, Commander?" "No," she said quickly, her voice even, but her eyes did not leave his. "Continue your work. I will review your reports shortly." The day went on, and Elias worked quietly, but he could feel the tension in the room, the weight of Salith's attention pressing down on him. When the inspection was complete, she called him to a private room. The walls were metallic, softly lit, and the hum of the building surrounded them. "Ward," she said, closing the door behind her, "I need to ask you something unusual." Elias tilted his head. "Unusual questions are my specialty, Commander." Her violet eyes met his, searching, measuring. "Do you remember the incident on Xylar Prime 10 years ago?" Elias blinked. Xylar Prime, the fire, the chaos, the evacuation missions, and then the memory of the child, small and terrified, trapped in a collapsed building. He swallowed, carefully considering his words. "I remember many things, Commander. Are you referring to a specific rescue mission?" Salith's breath caught. She could not hide her surprise. You were there. You saved a child, a young Seren from the collapse." Elias's expression remained calm. "Yes, it was part of the mission. I did what anyone would have done. My team and we were assigned to evacuate civilians. But you disappeared after that," she whispered, almost to herself. "No record, no trace, just gone." "I prefer to work quietly," Elias said simply. "Recognition is not necessary. Saving a life does not require acknowledgement." Salith's mind swirled. Here was the human who had saved her, standing quietly, unassuming, yet capable of acts that defied expectation. All her life she had remembered those eyes, the calm courage, the steady focus, and now she saw it again, unchanged. She took a deep breath, struggling to maintain composure. "Why are you here, on Terran 5?" she asked. "Do you know the Council has strict rules regarding humans in frontier regions?" "I am here because this settlement needs someone who can fix things efficiently and reliably," Elias replied. "Humans are underestimated, as you probably know. That does not bother me. Efficiency and skill speak louder than species or rank." Salith studied him, and for the first time in cycles, she felt uncertainty. The Council, her colleagues, the rules, they all valued control over results. Humans, however, valued adaptability, courage, and intelligence, the kind of traits that no amount of authority could suppress. A sudden alarm sounded, the lights blinking red as a small freighter experienced a malfunction. Elias moved immediately, heading for the control panel. Salith watched him handle the crisis. He remained calm under pressure, issuing commands to the automated systems, fixing the engine issue, and preventing a disaster. Every action was deliberate, precise, and effective. When the alarm cleared, Salith approached him. "You handled that quickly." Elias shrugged. "It needed to be done. Risking lives unnecessarily is not efficient." Her gaze softened slightly. "I see now why you were chosen for that mission on Xylar Prime. You were human, but capable of more than any of us expected." Elias met her eyes. There was no arrogance, only honesty. Humans survive because we adapt. We do not rely on fear or rules. We do what must be done. Salith nodded, though inwardly she was in turmoil. This human, quiet, unassuming, yet undeniably strong, was the one who had saved her life years ago, and now, in front of her, he continued to show the qualities that made humanity remarkable. As the sun set over Terran 5, painting the horizon in shades of orange and violet, the two stood in silence. The memories of the past and the reality of the present collided. Salith realized something profound. Humans were not to be underestimated. They were not just survivors. They were changers of fates, quietly and without recognition. And in that moment, she understood that her life, and perhaps the balance of the frontier, had been shaped by the steady hands and calm eyes of a human named Elias Ward. For the first time in cycles, she felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps the galaxy could be different. Perhaps humanity could teach even the most disciplined species something about courage, resilience, and quiet strength. The day ended with a new understanding. Elias returned to his quarters, unaware of the full depth of the realization he had sparked. Salith remained in her room, staring out at the twin suns, her mind replaying a memory she thought was long buried. And somewhere deep inside, she whispered a name: Elias. She did not know what the future held, but one thing was clear. The human who saved her all those years ago was still remarkable, and his presence here would change more than just her life. The morning on Terran 5 arrived quietly, but the stillness felt heavier than usual. Elias moved through the settlement with his usual calm efficiency, checking systems and repairing minor faults. The hum of machinery and the chatter of distant workers usually brought him a sense of rhythm, but today there was a tension in the air he could not ignore. Commander Salith had requested another meeting. The private room where they spoke the previous evening had not been chosen lightly. She was a careful strategist, and this conversation, Elias suspected, would go beyond standard protocols. He adjusted his toolkit, preparing for the discussion but keeping his mind alert. When he entered, Salith was already standing, looking out the large observation window that overlooked the barren red plains. Her posture was straight, almost rigid, but her eyes, those violet eyes that never missed a detail, softened slightly as they met his. "Sit, Ward," she said. "We need to talk about the past and what it means now." Elias took the offered chair, resting his hands calmly on his knees. "I am listening, Commander." She turned to face him, her expression uncharacteristically thoughtful. "Do you remember the child you saved on Xylar Prime?" Elias did. Every detail had remained etched in his mind. The collapsing habitat, the cries for help, the smoke and heat. He had moved quickly, relying on instincts honed during countless missions. That child had survived because he had acted without hesitation. "Yes," he said simply. "I remember." Salith stepped closer, her eyes locking onto his. "That child was me. You saved my life." Elias's expression remained neutral, but he allowed a moment of acknowledgement. "I suppose that explains the familiarity. You have grown strong and capable." Her lips pressed together. "Strong, yes, but the memory of that day, it shaped everything. You left without any recognition. We thought you were gone forever. Yet here you are, in a place I never expected to find you." Elias leaned back, keeping his tone calm. "I do not seek recognition. Actions speak louder than words. If I had left a mark on your life, that is enough." Salith studied him, realizing that his philosophy was truly different from that of her own species. The Saren measured worth by rank, obedience, and recorded achievement. Humans measured worth by actions, results, and the courage to face danger, often without expectation. "I must confess," she said slowly, "I do not understand how your species operates. You act with such confidence, without fear, even when the odds are against you. You survived Xylar Prime when many could not, and yet you do not boast, do not demand reward. Why?" Elias smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. "Because survival is not about glory. It is about necessity. responsibility, and choice. I do what must be done, not for praise, but because it matters. Salith considered this. Her world had been ruled by rules and fear, yet here was a human who defied expectation with calm logic and courage. The realization unsettled her. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but capable of acts no authority could fully control. Their conversation was interrupted by a comm alert. The Council of Terran 5 had sent a directive. A human presence on this planet, unmonitored and unrecorded, was now considered a security risk. A small squad was being dispatched to detain Elias for questioning. Salith's eyes narrowed. They want to take you. I am supposed to ensure compliance. Yet, I cannot ignore what I owe you. You saved my life. I cannot allow them to take you without reason. Elias did not panic. I anticipated this. Rules can be strict, but they cannot stop actions grounded in reality. I will face them calmly. As the squad approached, Salith made her decision. She activated the local comm system and sent a secure override, blocking the squad's entry. She then turned to Elias. We do not have much time. You need to come with me, quietly. Elias nodded. Lead the way. They moved quickly through the settlement, avoiding the main pathways. The twin suns were high in the sky, casting long shadows across the red sands. Elias noticed how Salith moved with ease, her grace unmatched even among the Saren. Her movements were deliberate, precise, but underlined by a tension that revealed concern. As they reached the edge of the landing area, a small shuttle waited. Elias climbed in and Salith followed. She activated the engines, lifting the craft into the thin atmosphere with smooth control. Below them, the squad searched, confused by the sudden disappearance of the human they were ordered to detain. Once they were safely away from the settlement, Salith spoke. I owe you more than I can repay. I can protect you now, but the Council will not stop easily. They fear your presence because humans are unpredictable. Elias leaned back, studying the alien landscape below. Unpredictable, yes, but effective. Humans act when necessary, adapt when needed, and endure when others fail. That is what makes us strong. Salith looked at him, seeing the truth in his words. She remembered the young child she had been, trapped and helpless. This human had pulled her from death itself, then disappeared, leaving no trace. And now, standing before her, he continued to display the very qualities that had saved her life. The shuttle passed over canyons and deserts, moving toward a hidden outpost that Salith maintained for emergencies. As they approached, she explained more about the Council's fears. They see humans as volatile. You are clever, adaptable, and not bound by their rules. That frightens them. Elias nodded. They underestimate humanity. That is their mistake. Humans are capable of surviving and thriving where others fail. We do not need authority to dictate our choices. We act based on judgment, courage, and necessity. Salith was silent for a moment, contemplating this. The Council had spent cycles building systems to control the frontier, to predict behavior, and to enforce compliance. Yet humans, by design, were not predictable. They could improvise, solve impossible problems, and survive situations no algorithm could anticipate. The shuttle landed quietly at the hidden outpost. Salith led Elias inside, showing him a secure room with communication links and basic supplies. She gestured for him to sit. You have no idea what your presence here means, she said. The Council will not stop. They fear your skills, your judgment, your humanity. You have the potential to change perceptions, not just here, but across the stars. Elias considered her words. I do not seek power or influence. I act where I am needed. If my actions change minds, then it is a byproduct, not a goal. Salith studied him. That is what makes humans remarkable. You act without ego, without need for recognition, and yet you leave a mark no authority can erase. I see now why you survived Xylar Prime, why you were effective when others were not. Your species is extraordinary. Elias shrugged lightly. Extraordinary, perhaps, because we must be. Our survival depends on it. We learn quickly, act decisively, and endure hardship. That is the essence of humanity. Their discussion was interrupted by a signal from the council. A small fleet had been dispatched to intercept them. Salith's eyes narrowed. They will attempt to force your capture. We must be ready. Elias remained calm. They underestimate the situation. Humans are not easily cornered. We adapt, we improvise, and we act where others hesitate. Salith nodded. Then we will act together. I will not let the council take you without understanding what you truly represent. As the fleet approached, the shuttle rose into the upper atmosphere. Salith piloted with precision, evading sensors and automated intercepts. Elias worked alongside her, analyzing patterns and predicting moves. Together, human and alien, they moved with an efficiency that no single species could match. For hours, they evaded pursuit, traveling farther than the council expected. During this time, Salith observed Elias closely. He was not just a survivor. He was a strategist, a problem solver, and a human who acted with courage and clarity in moments of uncertainty. Finally, they reached a remote asteroid base, hidden from sensors and patrols. Here, they could rest, plan, and prepare. Salith turned to Elias. You have changed my understanding of humans. You act with courage, intelligence, and focus. You remind me of what I once thought impossible. Elias smiled faintly. I do what must be done. That is all. Humans endure, adapt, and act when necessary. That is all I have ever done. Salith nodded. Then we will prepare. The council cannot be allowed to act without reason. And perhaps the galaxy needs to see the strength of humanity, not just its rarity. Elias leaned back, looking out at the stars. The galaxy will see, not because of pride or ego, but because humans act when action is needed. That is enough. As night fell over the asteroid base, Salith reflected on the events of the past cycles. A human had saved her life once, and now that same human stood before her, calm, composed, and undeniably capable. The council might fear humanity, but she knew the truth. Humans were resilient, courageous, and quietly extraordinary. And as she watched Elias prepare for the challenges ahead, she realized that the galaxy was on the cusp of change. Humans had always been underestimated. That would no longer be the case. For the first time, she felt hope, not just for herself, but for the understanding that humanity could bring to the stars. And she knew that with Elias Ward at her side, the future would be different. The asteroid base was quiet, yet alive with a sense of anticipation. Elias sat at a control panel, reviewing star charts and schematics, while Salith moved around, preparing communications and defenses. Outside, the blackness of space stretched infinitely, dotted with distant stars, a reminder of how small Terran 5 was in the galaxy's grand scale. Yet it had become the center of events that could alter the balance of power. Salith approached Elias, her expression serious but thoughtful. The council believes they control the frontier, that they dictate who survives and who does not. They have forgotten one simple truth. Humans do not follow expectations. We can predict behavior, but humans act beyond prediction. Elias leaned back, fingers interlaced behind his head. They will learn, eventually. Humans have always been underestimated, and underestimation is dangerous for those who assume superiority. Salith nodded. Then it is time to show them. For the next several cycles, they worked in careful coordination. Elias analyzed the council fleet's movement patterns, noting weaknesses and tendencies. He suggested strategies that were simple yet effective, positioning ships in unexpected formations, creating diversions that relied on adaptability rather than brute force, and using intelligence gathered from past encounters. Salith watched him in awe. Here was a human who could think not only tactically but with a sense of anticipation that surpassed even the best-trained Saren officers. When the council fleet finally arrived, expecting to intimidate and capture Elias, they found themselves facing resistance they had not anticipated. The asteroid base was shielded, sensors disrupted, and defensive drones moved with precision guided by Elias's calculations. The human's improvisational style combined with Salith's disciplined command created a force the council had no prepared response for. The council commander demanded surrender. Salith's voice echoed in the communication channel. You underestimate the human you seek. He acts not out of ego or fear, but out of necessity and intelligence. We will not comply without reason. Elias added his own calm voice. I do not seek war. I do not seek power. I act only to protect those who cannot protect themselves. You may continue to underestimate humanity, but that will not change the outcome. The council fleet hesitated. They had trained for human unpredictability, but nothing in their simulations prepared them for this. A species so rare, acting with precision, courage, and calm determination, disrupted their expectations at every turn. Hours passed as maneuver after maneuver unfolded. Elias's strategies minimized risk, and Salith's coordination amplified effectiveness. Small, calculated strikes forced the council ships into retreat without unnecessary violence. The council realized that humans were not just survivors, they were leaders, strategists, and catalysts of change. In the aftermath, Salith stood beside Elias, watching the last of the council fleet withdraw. You have done more than survive, she said softly. You have shown them what humanity is capable of. They will not forget this. Elias shrugged lightly, his expression calm. I did what had to be done. Humans endure, humans adapt, and humans act when necessary. That is all. Salith smiled faintly, remembering the child she had been on Xylar Prime, saved from death by this same calm, determined human. Your actions today have not only protected yourself, but changed the perception of an entire species. You have reminded them that strength is not only in numbers or authority, but in courage, intelligence, and judgment. Elias nodded. Then perhaps the galaxy will learn something valuable, not about humans alone, but about the principles that allow any species to thrive: adaptability, courage, and the willingness to act when it matters most. Word of the Council's retreat spread across the frontier. Other planets and settlements, once fearful of human presence, began to reconsider. Humans were no longer rare anomalies. They were examples of resourcefulness and endurance. Aliens who had once doubted humanity started to approach differently, with respect and curiosity rather than caution or condescension. Salith reflected on this. She had served the Council faithfully, believing that obedience and control were the ultimate tools for maintaining order. Yet she had learned something far more profound. Humans did not need authority to act. Their strength was intrinsic, born of experience, adaptability, and a moral compass that guided action without hesitation. In private moments, she spoke to Elias. You do not see yourself as remarkable, yet your presence has changed so much. You are not just a human here. You are a symbol. Others will see what I see. Elias studied her quietly. I do not seek to be a symbol. I only seek to act when necessary. If others learn from my actions, that is a consequence, not a goal. The weeks that followed were filled with careful diplomacy. Salith and Elias communicated with neighboring systems, showing the Council the benefits of collaboration and the folly of fear-based control. The Council, humbled by the efficiency and effectiveness of human methods, began to adjust policies, allowing humans a more equal role in frontier operations. Elias continued his work quietly, repairing, strategizing, and teaching where necessary. He did not seek recognition, yet his reputation grew. Aliens and humans alike began to see him as an example of what humanity could achieve, not through aggression or dominance, but through calm intelligence, moral courage, and the ability to act decisively when needed. One evening, Salith and Elias watched from the asteroid base as a convoy of human ships passed through the frontier, unimpeded and respected. "They move freely now," she said softly, "because of you." Elias remained silent, watching the stars. "Not because of me, because humans act when action is required. That is what matters. The rest follows naturally." Salith looked at him, a mixture of admiration and gratitude in her eyes. She remembered the small child trapped in debris, frightened and helpless. That child had survived because of this human's calm determination. Now, she saw the same qualities at work on a galactic scale. "The galaxy underestimates humans too often," she said finally. "But they will learn. And you will always be part of that lesson." Elias nodded. "Humans endure, adapt, and act. That is enough to make a difference. The galaxy will notice eventually, but it is not recognition that matters. It is action." The asteroid base became a hub of quiet activity, a place where humans and aliens could collaborate, learn from one another, and witness the strength that came from courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Salith often found herself reflecting on the past, realizing how one human had shaped not just her life, but the perception of an entire species. In moments of quiet, she would speak to Elias. "I will never forget what you did for me. You saved me once, and now you have saved many more in ways they cannot yet comprehend." Elias smiled faintly. "It was never about saving. It was about doing what must be done. Humans act, and the rest follows." As the twin suns set over distant horizons, casting long shadows across the asteroid base, Salith and Elias stood together, looking out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and filled with challenges, yet it had also been shown a truth it could not ignore. Humans, quiet and unassuming, were capable of extraordinary courage, intelligence, and adaptability. The memory of that long-ago rescue on Xylar Prime remained alive in Salith's mind, a reminder that small acts of courage could ripple across time and space. And now, standing beside Elias Ward, she realized that the human she had once known as her savior had become a force that could quietly change the future. The Council would not forget this lesson. Other species would not forget. And humans, as always, would continue to act with quiet determination, endurance, and moral clarity, shaping the galaxy in ways that no one had anticipated. For Elias Ward, life remained simple. He repaired, analyzed, and guided when needed. But the galaxy, having witnessed his quiet strength, would never again underestimate humanity. Salith placed her hand lightly on his shoulder, a gesture of gratitude and respect. "You were always remarkable, Elias. I only see it now." He nodded, his calm smile reassuring. "Humans are remarkable because we act when it matters. That is all anyone needs to know." As the stars stretched endlessly above, the frontier felt different. The galaxy had been reminded of a truth long overlooked. The human spirit, quiet and determined, could survive, endure, and shape destinies beyond expectation. And in that realization, hope and possibility stretched further than the twin suns of Taran 5 ever could. In the silent beauty of space, two figures stood together, human and Saren, bound by memory, respect, and a shared understanding. The galaxy was vast, yet now it had seen the power of courage, intelligence, and quiet action. And the story of a human who saved a child years ago only to quietly change the course of the stars would live on. The frontier was no longer the same. Humans had arrived not with boastful triumph, but with quiet resilience. And the galaxy, whether it knew it or not, would never be able to ignore them again.